Hello there, welcome along. This is Business Connections Live, another Wednesday night. Well, another dime, another dollar. Here we are. It is edition number 33, 30th of April 2014. And joined today by Antonio, that's a bad start, isn't it? Joined today by Antonio Falco, Sales and Business Consultant, and also Regional Director and Chairman of the Federation of Small Business. Lovely to have you with us today. Thank you very much for coming along.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for having me. And
Antonio,
Steve, we've known each other a long time, so don't worry about the name. It's fine.
Did I get it wrong?
No, don't worry. No. At the very beginning, you corrected yourself, and I thought you don't need to. We've known each other for a while. Thank you for having me. It's really good. It's good to see you looking so well, by the way.
Well, thank you very much. You're not looking bad yourself.
Thank you.
Listen, there's going to be a lot of people that we're introducing you to this evening, and they're not going to know who or what you do. Mm-hmm. And I said that you're a sales and business consultant. Tell us a little bit about what your business is all about, and in fact what you do on a day-by-day basis, because the Federation for Small Businesses, that organisation, is nearly actually secondary to what you do, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the Federation's is a voluntary organisation in terms of my time. So my business is what I do, which is as a consultant. And essentially, Steve, I help companies with a variety of different business issues. A lot of them to do with sales and business development. How on earth do we get the next customer in the door? And it's something I've been doing now for 15 years, worked with hundreds of people, hundreds of businesses, and it's the question that always keeps coming back time and time again.
When people come to see you and you actually contact them and they speak to you, what are the kind of typical problems that they're coming up with when they're talking to you? Why are they talking to you? What are they saying? Are they saying, look, business isn't doing that well at the moment, or we want to increase, we want to do our marketing, we want to increase our sales? What kind of things are they saying?
Well, a lot of the people that I talk to are already doing pretty well in business. They haven't called me in because they've got some horrendous problem, or they're down on their luck, or they really don't have much of a pipeline of potential new customers available to them. They actually want to become smarter, quicker, better, more effective, and tie down this whole issue of how do we get our sales process working smarter so that we've got that constant flow of customers. So I talk to people about those sort of issues, but most of them are doing pretty well, and there's an upturn in the economy, thank goodness. But I get called into a variety of different types of businesses, and it's, whilst they all have very similar problems, a lot of it comes down to how on earth we get the next customer in the door.
Getting the next customer in the door is what business is all about. Do you see fundamentally the same mistake each and every time?
I guess I do. There's always certain things that companies aren't doing. What I think I try and do is try and figure out why. Mm-hmm. Why aren't they doing the things that they need to do? What's stopping them doing it? And although, I'm not like other consultants, or rather, let me tell you how I work, Steve. When I'm talking to a potential customer, they're sitting there telling me what their problems are, and I'm normally thinking, actually, it isn't, and let me tell you what really the problem is and why. And, people ask, how do I do that? I work basically on my intuition and my instinct. Mm-hmm. There's science and knowledge behind that as to how to fix it, but most businesses are talking to me because they just want to get better at what they're doing.
I think the big problem that a lot of businesses are going to have when they talk to a consultant is actually, I suppose, identifying what they see as their problem, and then believing you when you tell them what the problem actually is. But if you had to sum up the issues that small to medium-scale enterprises are actually suffering these days, what do you think the most common mistake is that they make?
I'm not sure it's fair to call it a mistake. It's just that a lot of small businesses don't have time or allocate enough time to business development. Because without new customers coming in the door, and you've run businesses before, Steve, you know that you've got to have a healthy forecast of potential new customers coming in the door. And so what I try and do is make sure that there's a robust process in place and that they have the skills to be able to develop those new customers. And of course, we all have a fear of selling, don't we? But as I've said many times before, there's a whole load of fantastic products out there that you'll never see the light of day of, because the people who've got a hold of those products or services never get around to doing the stuff you need to do, which is getting out there and talking to people, potential customers, about what their product can do for you. And of course, you talk about mistakes. Well, if there is a mistake, there's an awful lot of people doing a lot of telling instead of selling.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit later on about social media, and of course that is broadcasting, isn't it, in a general term to a certain extent, that we're actually getting out there and we're telling people. But I would imagine a lot of people are using it nearly as an excuse not to get in contact with their customer, not to get in front of them and actually do a proper presentation.
Well, Steve, I remember when I first started in sales a few years ago, and in those days you had a telephone, a database of some sort, or Yellow Pages. That's what you had. Nowadays, you've got a panoply of different outlets, different, as I call them, loud hailers. So you've got a website, you've got social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. You've got the ability of broadcasting your message in a variety of different ways that you never had before. But the trouble is, and you've highlighted it accurately, Steve, is that those are ways of getting your name, your brand out there. But at some point, and I think one of your previous guests, Brad Burton, a couple of weeks ago, said skin, 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 money. I'll interpret that as saying you've got to make the call. At some point, you've got to make the call. You've got to pick the phone up, speak to the person you met at the networking event, speak to the person who you met because you were introduced by another customer, speak to the person that's had a referral in, has seen your name on a piece of paper. You know they've got your details. You still need to pick the phone up and actually physically get in front of somebody, I believe, for most of us, not all businesses, but for most of us, need to be able to get in front of somebody in order that you can do what selling is about. And what's selling about, Steve? It's about swapping your product or service for their money. It's making that transaction fantastically simple, incredibly complex.
So why do you think then that people are so frightened of it? Why are they frightened of picking up the phone and actually talking to somebody? Is it the fear of rejection? Or is it that they don't really understand the sales process, that maybe you've got to phone 100 people to get that one positive order?
I think it's all those things. I think, nobody goes into business to become a salesperson. We go into business because we're passionate about what we do. We're passionate about being the best printer, about being the best web designer, about being the best IT consultant. We're passionate about those things. You're passionate about producing the best possible business programs for corporates. That's what you do. And none of that, nobody ever tells you, but by the way, in order to make that work, you need to start seeing people. And there's a process for doing that. And so, yes, it's a lack of skill. And I come across that a lot. So your earlier question, what's the mistake? It's the lack of skill. Secondly, it's a fear. I think the fear of, fear of rejection, but I think it's even deeper than that. It's the fear of actually putting yourself out there. It's putting yourself on stage. You've probably heard many times, Steve, I know that there's one thing, I think, was it Steve Bridget last week mentioned?
Last week, yes.
He mentioned that, most people would rather die than stand up on stage and make a speech. Well, I think that's the same in the sales process. Most people just don't want to be confronted with that situation. But I'll say to most people, you don't have to be some clever, slick salesperson. All you have to do is do a little bit. And most businesses I go to aren't doing anything. And so
is a lot of it going to be passive? I know we talk here about the whole sales process on a regular basis, and the things that are said is that most sales seems to come from recommendations. But for a lot of businesses, you can't rely on recommendations. You've got to go out there, you've got to be hard-nosed and thick-skinned, and you've got to ask for those orders. You may well indeed have the best mousetrap, mightn't you? And they're still not beating their path to your door. So you've really got to go out there and tell them why. When it comes to the process then, is it the lack of confidence in picking the phone up? Is it the lacking confidence in how we construct and put together our sales pitch? Do we just not understand the best way to sell it? Do we sell it badly? Are we, when I say we, I'm talking about the business community,
Yep.
But is it very much a case that we start from the wrong place, or we sell features, we don't sell benefits? What area is the weakness, or is it, once again, all of it?
Gosh, have we got more than an hour? It's all of those things. It's all of those things. So let me try and make some sense of all those things that you've mentioned. In the first instance, most people don't understand where they're meant to be starting from. And so the starting point has to be, here's my product or service, who do I think it's going to appeal to? And a lot of that can be done with some sort of market research, although I caution people not to do too much market research because you can talk yourself out of it.
Right.
And I'll come back to that point later on, if I may. So there's a bit of market research, but there's an understanding of what it is your product can actually do for somebody. Once you've started to understand that, and of course, just as an aside, Steve, if you're going out and talking to people about what your product or service can do for them, you actually start to learn what your product or service does.
What's in it for them, isn't it? That's what it's all about.
No. You actually start to learn exactly what it is that you're delivering. Most businesses think they know what their product or service is, but it's not until you start telling people or exploring with people what your product or service can do that you actually start to learn yourself. So is that products? I mean, we'll move on a moment. But is that products we're talking about, or is it providing services to both?
So honestly, you believe that?
Yeah, I believe that most people don't actually. They think they know what their product or service does, but it's not until you actually start talking to a potential customer. And there's been an awful lot of modifications on products and services because a customer says, "But does it do that?" And they go away thinking, actually, it doesn't. Perhaps I can modify it to do that.
It's a little bit like the so what moment, isn't it? It does this,
There's
and
an element
this.
of that.
So what?
There's an element of that. But you see, this is why, coming back to your earlier point, what are the other mistakes? What are the mistakes? And I've said there are no mistakes, but what is it you're trying to do in selling? Well, let me ask you this question, Steve. What is it you think you're selling?
What we're selling?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, you've run other businesses. What is it you're selling?
I suppose, depending on where you're looking at within our business, but there are two areas. We're selling a vehicle, I would imagine, for getting information out to small to medium scale enterprises. An interactive television channel.
So you've just corrected yourself there, haven't you?
Well, no, because it's the same thing but slightly differently said.
Okay.
But I mean, what we say on our website, interactive business television channel.
Okay.
And the whole idea is that we will get experts like yourself to come in and to impart the information to small to medium scale enterprises. And that really is the concept behind the program. Yes, have we changed it? Yes, we have.
And why have you done that?
To make it better, to improve it, to
because
provide a better
people go,
service.
hey, do you do X, do you do Y? You do, you improve it on the way. But let me tell you what I think, because when I ask that question of business people, what is it you think you're selling, I get a whole variety of different answers. And a lot of it is down towards a list of benefits, and I want to touch on that because it's a very important point on when we talk about benefits. But actually, let me tell you what I think most people are selling or should be selling.
Go on then.
Confidence.
And on that bombshell, well, hold on there for 1 second. I mean, it's interesting already. I mean, do you think you're selling one thing and in fact you're selling something different? Have you already had that kind of experience in your business life as it stands, where you've been selling something and you've been modifying it, you've changed it, you've gone out there a couple of times, you've done your pitch, and as far as you're concerned, you thought the pitch on the first couple of times was exactly what you thought your business was all about, and then you started to get maybe a negative reaction, or when you were going back to the client, what you were in fact doing, you were changing it, you were modifying it, you were making it more personalised for them. If that was what was happening, if that's what you've been doing, then surely that kind of qualifies exactly what Antonio has been saying in the first 15 minutes of tonight's programme. Think about your product. Think about what you're actually going to be selling on. Is it really, I suppose, what the customer wants? I'll tell you what, it's a very interesting area, this. Are you selling what the customer wants? Last week we were talking about how you communicate that with your customer. Or maybe when you're doing a presentation, identifying the people that are in the room when you're actually talking to them, the different personalities, the different types. You, as the messenger for your business, are you actually getting the message over? And are you taking the responsibilities of being the messenger for your business? If you haven't watched it yet, I do suggest you do. Steve Bridger with us last week on the programme, cracking show. And just to give you a bit of a taster of what happened on last week's programme, this is Business Connections Live number 32. Have a look at this. I'm joined this evening by Steve Bridger. He's going to be talking about more effective communications.
The thing about standing up and being, if like, seen and put on the spot, people just think they just go like mush. They just don't know what to do. They don't know how to cope with it, and they think it's all about them. But of course, it's not. A lot of people say, "Okay, let me tell you about me, and this is what I do." They miss out two vital words. It should be what I can do for you. It's the for you that they forget about. And really, when you go into networking situations, it's really the important thing is to realise that you've got a contribution to make, how you can help somebody else's business. There are so many people who go into business without necessarily doing the proper research to understanding that whether the business is right for them, whether they understand the business, whether they understand their competitors and what they're doing. They go on to go into something because they just love the idea that they've come up with, realising that there's probably only 9 people in the universe who actually like it as well. We start by realising the role, the importance of communication within a business. And the best way to do it is to think of yourselves as a messenger. And the crucial thing is that when people think that they are in that absolutely, totally essential, pivotal role in the business, how important that is that they realise that whatever they do, whether they're writing or speaking, that role is absolutely fundamental to business success. Remember that in a business situation, people are stressed, people have got their own targets, people have probably come into meetings from, from logistics, and they've come in from marketing, and they've come in from the packaging, and they've come in from, whatever it may be, the different facets you've got in business, and they've got all these other things in their heads. How do you sort of slow it down and make sure that they understand exactly what it is that you want to say and go away and do it properly for them to do what you want them to do? Because clearly, when you are talking in business to people, educating them, informing them, whatever it may be, the job you're doing, fundamentally, then is once everything is finished, they go away and they do what you want to do, i.e., they actually execute what the company wants them to execute in the right way, in the right terms, in the right time, and so on and so forth. And understanding and analysing the audience is one of the most crucial, fundamental jobs of the messenger. And all I could say, and here's the interesting thing, is that when you start talking about audience analysis, and if you can tell me, by the way, what on earth is going on in that lady in the second row, is an interesting thing. Now, but the point is, I could tell you, generally, within this particular audience shot, with all these people sitting there watching this 3D film, I could broadly tell you, and I'm only talking broadly to make my point, because if I try to get any cleverer than this, then it will be lost. Right. Because the crucial thing is that sitting within that audience there, watching that screen, there are 3 types of people. This group of people are, if you like, the blue sky thinkers. These are the people who get the concept. They're interested in the idea. They just love the whole thing that you've come up with. Okay. Group 2 are the dynamos. Right. These are the doers.
Other batteries are available, by the way.
Other batteries are available, rather than dual cells, indeed. Now, these people are absolutely crucial to running any of the business, and in fact, a proper business, ideally, would have people in it, working for it, that fall within each of those 3 categories which we're about to explore. And then, the inquisitors. These are the people who absolutely love facts, research, resources, backup, evidence, evidence, evidence. How long is a minute? Depending on how quickly you speak and your nature of delivery, it's between 120 and 180 words per minute. Now, I want you to say, first of all, it's Steve Bridger, and I have a book on startup, which is Success Before Startup, but I'm also a writer, and all of those things that have helped me really shape the presentation tonight. But the key thing about it is that when you are thinking about putting up something together in the business to be able to communicate yourself, make sure that you are absolutely clear in what you want to do, how you want to put your message across, and using all these different techniques to make sure that you become a better communicator.
Absolutely fantastic programme last week. If you hadn't had a chance to watch it yet, Steve Bridger, incredible guy. The books are here. Here they are. Fast Track Your Business Writing Skills. That's an incredibly powerful book. And, of course, this one here, Success Before Startup. A load of interviews inside of that, actually, where he's talking to businesses in the startup process and the kind of things that they found rather difficult. Steve Bridger, terrific show. If you haven't seen it yet, I do suggest that you do go onto the website. It is www.businessconnectionslive.com. Just go there and watch the program. And if you are watching this on YouTube, by the way, don't forget, here it comes, the big one. Please do subscribe to the channel. This week, I'm joined by Antonio Falco, Sales and Business Consultant, and also Regional Chairman of the Federation of Small Business. We're going to come on to that in a while, but the thing that's interesting about that is, and I always thought it was an employed position, but it's not. It's actually, it's nearly voluntary what you do with them.
What I do is voluntary, yes, absolutely.
We're going to come back to that in just a few moments. Just before we had our recap there, we were talking about one of the big failings perhaps in a lot of people when it comes to building and generating new businesses, confidence in what they're doing. You asked me a question actually during that short piece of film, and you said to me, could you describe to me what your sales process is? And I did, I struggled. And you said, and that typically is what happens. People struggle. They haven't got a clear system in their mind's eye. Absolutely. So let's kick off then with the confidence, and we'll talk about the struggling in just a second.
Well, okay. Let me finish that point of confidence. I think people are buying confidence. Confidence in the fact that when you say to them, my product or service will sort this problem out for you, that's what they need to believe. And that's actually what you're selling. You're selling the fact that they can be confident that if they use you or your product or your service, it's going to do what it says on the tin.
This is Brad's plan A and plan B. If you have a plan B, you don't believe in your plan A. But maybe you should make your plan B your plan A. I mean, but that's very true. So maybe you don't believe in what you're selling.
You know, sometimes if you're running a business, you've already put yourself out there, you've put together a product or service that you believe in can satisfy a problem. Of course, you know, I talked about what is it you're trying to do in that sales process. You're trying to create the transaction of your product and service for their money. And the journey there is incredibly complex. But selling is about trying to understand what the problem is and how you can solve it. Once you do that and you do it properly, you'll make the sale. And of course, one thing that a lot of people are afraid of is getting the answer no. But I keep saying to people, ultimately, there are only two answers that a prospective customer, I use that word carefully, prospective customer, they're only a customer when they're giving you money. So the only two answers that a prospective customer can give you is yes or no. Yes, we've got the deal, fantastic, that's great. No, we haven't, thank you, I'll stop wasting my time and yours and I'll move on to the next person. They have equal value, and a really clever salesperson and a really clever business person understands exactly that both those answers have an equal value.
And I take it what you're saying there is that why did they say no? Investigate that, look at why they said no, and maybe improve on the next sales call.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the starting point is where people are probably wondering, where do I start this whole? I asked you in the break
indeed.
process.
Where do we start it?
Well, I say to people, look, why don't you, with a piece of paper and a pen, write down 6 questions that you feel you need the answer to in order to qualify whether the person you're speaking to is going to end up being a customer or not.
Now, do you have to be clever with those kind of questions?
No.
Well, I was just... Do you need the product? Do you need the service?
That's the wrong question.
And that's what most people will do. Okay. They'll be phoning up. Take, for instance, shall we say that we're approaching a large corporate organisation,
okay,
and we phone them up and we go, do you need corporate videos?
Okay, that's the wrong starting point.
Right.
Okay, if you're making a phone call...
Don't say that, by the way.
No, I'm sure you don't, Steve. But if you're making a phone call, then the objective of the phone call is what? It's to make an appointment. Mm-hmm. You can't sell what you do over the phone. And again, come back to your first question, what are the mistakes that people make? The mistakes that people make is they try and sell what they do and what they offer over the phone. Most businesses can't. The only thing you're trying to sell on the telephone is an appointment. And there's a little process for that. And on my blog page somewhere, there's a thing called Make That Call. And you can learn about how you actually go through the process of making that phone call. But the key objective for most businesses when they're making a phone call is to get an appointment, not to attempt to sell their product or service on the phone, because most people can't. So don't do it. So once you've made that appointment, that's sale number 1. When you're in front of the prospective customer, you need to have a starting point. And I say to people, the starting point is have 6 questions ready that you need the answer to that qualifies whether or not in reality you're talking to a prospective customer. What are those questions going to be? Well, start from the point of thinking about those questions in terms of what your product could potentially do for them. And that'll start the mind thinking in terms of the questions you need to ask. Of course, one key question is, have you got the money? Okay, because there's no point.
But people are really frightened, aren't they? Small businesses,
but there's
large businesses are frightened of actually turning around and going.
Large businesses are.
Cash?
Large businesses are. But you ask that question in a more sophisticated and a more considered manner. It's not that blunt. I'm making it blunt for the sake of this conversation. So think of the 6 questions that you need to bottom out with a potential customer that gets you and them to understand whether or not there's potential in this conversation. And
now, should they be frightened of doing that, of having that appointment? Because it seems to me what a lot of businesses do, they rely on social media, they rely on their websites to generate the business. They want to sell effectively off the page. And what you're saying is that really businesses today just don't do that. It's too competitive a market. And really, not unless you're selling a consumer item, you're not going to sell off the page.
Yeah, that's what I believe. I mean, you know, how does an IT services company sell their products or services to a potential client? So let's say that you're a business, you've got 25 employees, 25 PCs, 25 phones, 6 servers. You need those computer peripherals that go along with that, all that computer network. You need all of that maintained by a proper professional IT company. How on earth are you ever going to buy that product off a website or a social media tweet? You're not.
And it's interesting as well, because I suppose the kind of question that if I was selling that to somebody, what's the value to you if one of your PCs was to go down?
Well, there you go. That's one of the searching questions you ask off the back of the initial 6 questions. So what you're trying to do with those 6 questions is understand, as I said a second ago, whether or not this is a potential customer. The searching questions, the next level of questions down, are all about the effect of not having you as a provider, of not having your computer working, of not having your website working, of not as whatever industry they're in, of things not happening from them. You want to bottom out what the net effect is of their computer not working.
You do talk to a lot of businesses, and what they say is that once we're in front of the client, we can then sell the product. And I suppose, and I can see there that you disagreed with me, but I mean, there's a lot of people that believe that. Once they've got the appointment, then they're away.
Yeah.
And we've been quite clear on the 6 questions to do this, 6 questions to do that. What about the getting of the appointment? That's the hard bit. How do you go about that? Sure, are there 6 questions? Is there a key question? Is it just perseverance? The number of calls you make, eventually you're going to break down the barriers. How do you get past gatekeepers? Is it techniques that you use? I mean, how do you do it?
There are techniques for all of that. Okay, but let me start with this. In business, you have to be persistent and consistent. And in this current society of instant fame, we've forgotten the fact that actually most businesses are a 30-year overnight success. Ever heard of Microsoft in the first 10 years? Most people never done. IBM in the first 10 years? Never ever done. And why is that? Because they're not an overnight success. I did a talk last week, Steve, where I mentioned this. It came to my head to mention it for some reason. And I said, it is about persistence and consistency over a period of time. And I remember there was once, many years ago, an interview with Salvador Dali. And the interviewer said to him, so could you draw something now if I got a piece of paper and a pen? He said, yeah, absolutely. So they gave him a piece of paper and a pen. He did 2 or 3 squiggles. And the interviewer said, well, that's amazing. What would that be worth? And Dali said some ridiculously high figure. And the interviewer said, well, how on earth can you justify that? It took you a few seconds. And Dali said, no, it took me 30 years. So the point is, what we have to understand in business, there is no overnight success. You have to be persistent and consistent. You know, they did a survey several years ago, Steve, where they found out why is it that small businesses tend to go out of business and give up. Why don't they do well? And one of the key, I think it was the number 1 reason, was that one day the owner woke up and said, I've had enough. And he stopped.
Well, this
Now,
is going
you
back
have-
to the Brad Burton thing, isn't it? This is, if you are self-employed, it is skinned,
Yeah.
payday. But a lot of businesses, 80% of them, give up while it's skin.
Well,
Go and get stuff.
let me put another speech. He mentioned skin, so let me mention skin. You know, you have to
Touch the skin.
touch a lot of people. You have to be able to get in front of a lot of people. Do it. Let's simplify it. Make enough handshakes. In my language, make enough calls, and get in front of enough people, and it is a numbers game. The difference is that the more experienced you are and the more knowledgeable about the sales process and the sales techniques in terms of how you close a deal, how you construct a sales appointment, all that stuff, what happens is the better you get at that, the less appointments you need to make the sale. And so when when I started, I was very lucky. I joined a company where they taught me everything on the road about selling. And I now realise, 25 years later, how much I actually learned from some
Overnight
fantastic
success
people.
then, yeah?
Overnight success. There you go.
There we go.
And so selling is an art and a science. And I'm saying to small business people, you don't need to be a super salesman. All I want you to do is some of the stuff. Even if I just said to you, just ask for the order. Don't be clever, ask for the order. And I'll give you an example. I was at an event a few years ago, and we were sitting around a table, about 15 or 20 of us, and a chap called Nick, he said, I've been seeing this customer now for 6 months, and I just can't get the order out of him. What do I do? And everybody around the table looked at me for the answer. And so I asked him a couple of questions about how he'd got to where he'd got to. And I said to him, I'll tell you what I want you to do, Nick. I want you to ring him and ask to meet him. He'll give you an appointment because he knows you've sat in front of him already. He'll give you an appointment. Don't worry about that. When you get in front of him, I want you to say this. Steve, we've been talking now for 6 months, and it seems to me that you like my product, you like me, and you like my company. I'd love your business. And he looked and held his breath for a second. I said, Nick, that's what you need to do. Because
The fear of asking for the order.
there comes a point where you have to do what I call kill or cure. Because most of us have a pipeline or a forecast of potential customers that we're hanging on to. And when I was a salesman in some of the companies I was at before, where I did become top salesman, by the way, on most of them.
Okay, no worries.
Just throw
we
that
believe
in.
you.
I had the best forecast you'd ever seen in your life, because I was hanging on to everything, when the reality was it was probably, instead of being that big, it was probably that big. And there's a cathartic process of getting rid of those that you're hanging on to, knowing it's never going to happen. Anyway, a few weeks later, we all congregated again, and everybody was desperate to hear what on earth happened with Nick. He said, you know what, Antonio, I did exactly what you said. I rang the guy, he gave me an appointment, I sat in front of him and said, look, you like me, you like my product, been talking for 6 months, can I have your order? And everybody bated breath, holding breath, what on earth happened? And he said, the chap said to me, you know what, Nick, I have been messing you about, here's the order. Now, is it as simple as that?
I was expecting him to say, I thought you'd never ask.
well, actually, there's that as well. There was that as well. That's a very good point. Is it as simple as that? No, it isn't. But actually, it is. At some point in a conversation, you've got to bring it to a head. And you as a business person, if you're a business person running a business, you have a duty of care to your business. And part of that duty of care says, I need to find customers. And at some point, I've got to put myself out and go, can I have your order, please?
When you say that to a business, what kind of reaction do you get from the people who are responsible either for the sales or the managing director?
Well, they tell me yes or no, don't they? They either tell me yes or no. Now, if they tell me yes, fantastic.
No, when you do that analysis, when you do the analysis and you say, this is what you need to be doing to get more sales for your business, and they sit there and because they think they've been doing it right up until that point.
Yeah.
So what do they say back? What's the reaction?
A lot of them is it's a one of those realization moments where they actually go, no, we haven't been doing it like that. Now, to get you to that point, by the way, there's a whole load of other stuff that happens before then. Mm-hmm. There is an element of sophistication, of hard work, of persistence, of being consistent, of having your story right. And can I just touch on one very important word, pitch? I absolutely hate it when people go, I'm going to pitch somebody. Mm-hmm. Because pitching is not selling. Pitching is just regurgitating, almost vomiting over a potential customer about how fantastic your product or service is and all the benefits. that's not how you do it. Selling is not about, and business is not about me, it's about you. It's not about us, it's about them. It's about what we can do for you. It's about how we can fix your problem. It's about how we can make your life better. It's about how you can make more money as a result of using our product or service. That's what it's about. It's about them, not about us. And so that's where people go wrong. That's the mistakes that people make. They go and pitch. Nobody wants to be pitched to. What people want is somebody who's intelligent enough to ask the right questions to get to the heart of, here's my problem, you understand it, I now believe and have confidence in the solution that you're suggesting. That's how you do it. That takes skill, and it takes effort, and it takes learning.
I don't know about you, but the whole thing is absolutely fascinating. If you found yourself sitting there in your office on a daily basis, and it seems to be a real uphill struggle when it comes to actually getting out there, talking to different customers, maybe the issue you're having is actually finding those, maybe that list to pick the phone up. But do you pitch? Do you just regurgitate? As Tony has said, do you vomit all over them, but not really listen and get that feedback that you need to make certain that you're telling them, you're selling them the right thing, you're talking to them about the right thing, things that are going to help them in their business? Or are you just really selling a concept or an idea that's going to help you? Maybe it's not the right way to be going about it. It's fundamentally the most important part of any business, the generating the sales. If nobody is paying you any money, then you don't actually have a business anymore. You actually have a charity. And the charity is kind of looking after you at that particular point. So you've really got to start thinking about that. It takes a little bit of guts, though, doesn't it? It does take guts. It takes guts to do it.
Absolutely
Does it
right.
get easier? You say you've been doing it for Overnight Sensation, 25 years. Would you say to people, yes, it's going to be hard on day one, it's going to be hard on day 2, 3 and 4, but maybe by day 5 you'll start to become a little bit more anaesthetised to it.
There's an old saying, practice makes perfect. Practice makes perfect. And, you know, I keep saying, and yes, so I do tell people up front that, look, this whole process, and most people, come back to your earlier initial comment, what mistakes they make. Most people, as you've identified, don't actually have a process. They don't know what their sales process is. They don't know how to take a prospective customer from 0 to the order. And you know the mistake that people make? They expect the customer to tell them what's going to happen next. Well, how on earth does a prospective customer know how your business works? You have to walk them through your process. You have to say, we've had an initial meeting, lovely to be here, Steve. It seems like we might be able to help each other and work together, and you might need my product. The next step in this process is this.
Do you think, I mean, I've got a friend of mine who is a director, or he was a director of a large multinational electronics company, and he used to say to his salesman, when you go out there and you're doing the close, that final call to action, there are always going to be resistance coming back. There's always going to be different things that people are going to say, look, if you do this, I'll do that. And what he would say to his salesman, I want you to be prepared for all the eventualities.
Yep.
I want you, in your bag, you will have a contract that covers all criteria, everything that's going to happen. Is that something that you would advocate?
Absolutely. And the thing you have to do, Steve, is and again, I come back to my earlier point, it's not until you start to, inverted commas, sell your product or service to prospective customers that you start to understand the things that will come back to you. So you're going to get some rejections or you're going to get some questions. When you start to get, that's the best time for any business, because you know what, you want those questions and those rejections because it helps you to understand what you did wrong. So I want people to actually go, we're not going to use services because you know what, I'm going to find out why. And that gives me another opportunity to actually maybe reiterate something I didn't do properly the first time, even I make mistakes, okay, or to explain how my product or service will help them better because I didn't do it the first time. And so, you know, you actually want people to come back with some rejections so that you actually learn, and that's what I'm saying earlier on, that's when you start to learn about your product or service, when people start saying no, because then you can refine it. You can refine the way that you're explaining or understanding what the problem is that you're trying to fix, and you understand the limitations of your product or service so you can make them better.
All right, one question then. One question, and I'm sure you're going to give me a great answer on this. Being a salesperson, selling your product, selling your brand, selling the service that you have, are good salesmen born? Or are they made?
Gosh, Steve, that's a very good question. You know, for years, I was told that they're made because nobody's born into the world a brain surgeon. Nobody's born into the world a great driver. Nobody's born into the world anything. And so for years I believed that, and a big chunk of me still does. You actually made, but I think you have to have a bent towards it, some sort of innateness about being able to want to talk to people and develop the skill of how you talk to people.
So the fundamental skill then is what in a salesperson? If you're sitting listening to this at the moment, you're thinking, you know what, I've never felt sales are for me, or you felt sales is for you. Is it about the fact that you are a natural communicator? Is it about communication?
Okay, if it's one word, Steve, I would say it's listening.
Being a natural listener.
Because unless you're listening, you have to ask questions according to maybe nobody listen, but you have to listen to what people are telling you so that you get to the point of deciding with them, it's a collaborative thing, maybe I can help you, maybe I can't. And in order to do that, you have to listen. So you have to ask some questions. And I say 6 because it's quite a good number to be working with. You have to have those 6 questions on a pad in front of you. And yes, if you do it robotic style to start with, that's okay. I'd rather you did that than nothing at all. But when you ask a question, you have to listen to the answer. And that's where most people go wrong. That's why, Steve, we've got lots of reps, very few salespeople. Because a really good salesperson actually listens.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. We're going to be talking about the FSB, the Federation for Small Businesses, in just a few moments' time. All right, let's go for a bit of a sell right now. What we need you to do for us is we'd like you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's the sell. That's all I'm asking you to do. It's going to cost you absolutely nothing. We'd like you to watch our programs on YouTube, and would like you to become part of our Business Connections Live community. The way you can do that is by simply pressing the red button. There's a red button actually on the screen right now. It's sitting just about there. Press that red button. That'll allow you to subscribe. Or if you want, you can watch this, and we'll give you some of the reasons why you should be thinking to yourself, do you know what? I want to be part of this because this is what my business is all about. Have a look at this. If you're a business owner and you need advice on how to make your business more successful, then Business Connections Live TV is just for you.
Our leading industry experts cut out the guesswork for growing businesses. How to use social media, what to expect from your accountant, web design, SEO, and so much more.
Business Connections Live TV is here to give you the motivation you need to succeed.
How you doing? My name's Brad Burton. I'm the motivational speaker that everyone's talking about right now, and I'm on Business Connections Live. What a show. What a show. People, do check it out.
If you're struggling with Facebook and LinkedIn.
Most people that I meet are on LinkedIn. Virtually, there's 14.5 million people just in the UK. I think the figures currently are 238 million people worldwide. But I would say that most of them don't really understand how to use it.
How to present your ideas more effectively.
Hello, I'm Philip Skinner, Shaw Walker Lees. A brilliant way to get message across. I'm actually thinking that we might switch away from our quarterly newsletter to do a video and get it sent through to staff and clients.
To generating leads and finding new business.
Hi, I'm Jim McLaughlin, Managing Director of business development company Axial, and I'd just like to say what a pleasure it's been to have the opportunity to appear on Business Connections Live.
Subscribe and be part of the Business Connections Live TV online community for free.
Business Connections Live TV every Wednesday 6 p.m. GMT, or catch up on the Business Connections Live TV YouTube channel.
Make certain your business is connected with Business Connections Live TV. Absolutely fascinating. Listen, we couldn't make the subscribe button any bigger. Some would say that was maybe just a little bit brash, but if you do want to subscribe to us, the button is, I've got to reach now for it there, the button's just up there, there it is. All you've got to do is subscribe to it, and what will happen then is you'll be notified of the different programs. Now, tonight, hopefully, you will have been already maybe impressed by what you've heard. If you are in that sales role, if you are running a business at the moment. Let me just tell you before we go back to Antonio, our guest on next week's show is Prem Guani. He's a CEO of a social outsourcing company which employs and mentors young apprentices from disadvantaged backgrounds and outsources them to local SMEs to run their digital presence for them. The thing that's interesting, we had Prem in the studio yesterday. He's going to be on the show, as I said, next week. The bloke, absolutely fascinating, and he brought one of his team with him, 20 years old, absolutely quote-unquote awesome guy, George. Thank you very much indeed for the pair of them coming along. And it was a really interesting programme because it gave us the opportunity to make absolutely certain that we knew where we were going with our social outsourcing, where we were going with our social media. If you need somebody like that, now don't use it as an excuse because that isn't the way to sell things. It's the way to remind people that you are selling things. I'll tell you what, let's talk about the selling process a little bit, Antonio. The whole area of selling, do you find that a lot of people sell features as opposed to benefits? Because going back to my shopping TV days, it is all about selling benefits. You're not selling the fact that it's a pen with a white case and a logo on it. What you're doing is you're selling something that is a high resolution printer that can actually do beautiful illustrations and you can carry it with you wherever you go. It doesn't need
I'll
any
have one,
batteries.
Steve.
You'll have one, okay. I've got a dozen of them actually. I'd like to thank our bank for these, by the way. Thank you, NatWest, there we go. But it is true. Do you find that when you're talking to people about this confusion between features and benefits?
Completely, and going back to me saying they don't make mistakes, well actually one of the mistakes that businesses make is the fact that they are pitching
again
benefits. They're telling them all the wonderful things that their product or service can do. That's a mistake. Because Steve, nobody has any benefits whatsoever. All they have is a bunch of features that may prove to be a benefit to somebody. So I'll come back to I'll link the other...
Now this is very interesting. This is revolutionary for me.
Okay.
Because I have always been told that you're selling benefits.
No. It's impossible. The only time you can sell a benefit is when it becomes a benefit. All we have is a bunch of features. And if I link it to the previous comment I made, Steve, in terms of when you're asking questions, the reason you're listening is because you're listening to what the problem is. And then you pull out of your bag one of the features that solves the problem that you've just heard. Then it becomes a benefit.
Okay.
Yeah?
I'm with you on this.
One man's meat is another man's poison.
Right.
So therefore, on that basis, all your features cannot all be benefits because what's relevant to you as a business isn't going to be relevant to somebody else. So you've got to understand, coming back to questions, you've got to ask the questions, you've got to listen to the answers, and then you pick out of your features what's relevant as a benefit. So all we have is a bunch of features that may prove to be benefit to somebody, but not everybody. The trick is to understand which of your features is relevant at what point.
Is that... It's interesting because, I mean, for instance, I've just been whispered in my ear. That's what makes shopping TV different because you have none of that feedback.
Absolutely.
And of course, once you're sitting in front of your customer, your prospective customer, you are getting the feedback so you can create and customise the features to give the right benefits to actually satisfy the situation. I like that. That's good.
See, I don't. Consumer's not my area. My area is business to business. So all my customers are selling a product or service to another business, and that's.
But I suppose there are manufacturers out there that create a whole world around. Let me take Apple, for instance, what they're doing. They're not just creating something that's features and benefits. They're creating lifestyle, aren't they, and things like
absolutely.
that.
They're absolutely. But remember what the founder said.
Steve Jobs.
Yep, Steve Jobs. He said, "I don't do any market research because people don't know what they want till I'm going to give it to them." Now, that's a level of, some would say arrogance, others would say faith and belief in your product. Most of us have to understand how our product or service is going to fit with that prospective customer. And on that basis, you have to understand how one of your features becomes a benefit.
The thing is, isn't it, that while Steve Jobs may have said that, and he did, I know he said that, some people could say that was arrogance, and I bet you there are a lot of people who were in his position that said very similar things, and we don't hear from them anymore.
Well, most of us can't do that. That's why, Steve. Most of us have to understand what have to listen to what the customer, the potential customer. Remember, a customer is only a customer when they're giving you money.
Cash, yep.
Okay. What the potential customer is saying. So that's why you have to find out. It's all about them. It's not about you. What's your problem? What's your issue? How are you dealing with it? What's the effect on your business of not solving X, Y, Z problem? Let me show you how we can help.
I tell you what, I think that brings us to a nice place. It is finding out what your customer actually wants. It is all about listening. It is, should we say, picking up that telephone, making certain that you're making those calls, that you are talking, you're making appointments. Don't try and be selling off Twitter. Don't try and be selling off your social media. Don't be trying to sell off anything like that. I mean, OK, there's our website sitting there, but is that going to sell it to you? Or is the message that we're giving you this evening, is that going to be the thing? Don't expect your website to be well, it's a sales tool because it's part of your marketing strategy. And I suppose that's the difference. All the social media in the world is about marketing. It's marketing. You're bringing the horse to water. But what you've got to do is that once you're at water, you've actually got to make them drink. Let's have a look at your site. You were talking there earlier on about the different things that you do. This is your blog, in fact. And you were saying there's a whole load of great information sitting here on your website. It's about the numbers, accidental salesman on cars, no man is an island, the year of the child. Oh, look at that. How cool is that? Target set, meeting with the Prime Minister's essays and so on. Salesman or rep, that's an interesting article. You'll find all of these, the address is there, AntonioFalco.com. Go to the website and you'll have absolutely no problem going through all the information. Fascinating site, by the way. Nice picture as well. If you want to find out more about Antonio, there's a nice moody shot there just at the very beginning. Products, people, sales, working our way through products to people to sales. No matter how you cut it, you must recognise that sales are the lifeblood of your business. It's just so important. It's got to be done. That kind of brings us to a good place, actually, before we get onto our kind of our summing up before the end of the programme. Let's talk a little bit about the FSB, Federation Small Businesses. Who are they? What are they all about? We know that you're the local representative of them, but who are they? And can they help small business? Are they something that we should be involved with, that small businesses should be beating a path to your door and saying, yeah, I want to be part of this? Well,
my immediate answer, and to those that are viewing this evening and subsequently, if you're a small business, you need to be a member of the FSB.
Why?
Because the FSB is your representative voice where it counts. You saw there a picture of me shaking hands with the Chancellor and a picture of me outside number 10. The FSB has the ability, it has the clout to be able to go where it counts to talk to the Prime Minister, the Chancellor and various ministers on a daily basis about the issues that are affecting small businesses and how the government needs to make the small business person's life a little bit easier. Because
so they're there lobbying for small business.
Absolutely.
Now, what kind of things have they lobbied on in the past? Because a lot of people won't have heard of, that have heard of the FSB, but not realised what their action has actually resulted in.
Well, the FSB, for example, last year's budget, 2013, there were several announcements made by the Chancellor, and I think of two of them. The scrapping of the fuel duty, that was an FSB policy that we lobbied hard on, because the effect of an increase in fuel on a constant basis to small businesses is quite dramatic. Anybody running a vehicle out there will know that just a penny on a litre of fuel makes a dramatic difference on your business. So the FSB lobbied hard to scrap that complete escalator, and that was proven last year. The other things that the FSB is lobbying hard on is things like late payment, small business. Well, there you go. There you go. How do we ensure that big businesses in particular pay small businesses in a timely fashion? And that's an ongoing campaign. Oh. Okay, exactly. There you go. So that's an ongoing campaign.
Some would say it's not working though, wouldn't they?
We're working hard. See, the wheels of government turn very, very slowly.
But at least you're out there representing small businesses.
We're out there in a hard way.
Because do we need to get that resolved, or do we need to get that resolved?
Exactly. Well, there is a charter that big businesses have signed up to, you know, stating that they will pay their suppliers within a 30-day period, or 60-day period.
And if they don't pay them, you add an interest rate to it. How many small businesses go, I'm not doing that, I'm terrified to do that?
And you know what, Steve? One of the things that we're doing as the FSB is we are highlighting those companies that sign up to that and then don't do it.
Well, I'm all for that.
We're naming and shaming. And at the meeting I had at number 10 with the Prime Minister's aide, that late payment came up as a big issue. And they said, well, we want to name and shame those companies. That's what we want to do. Look, there's a whole myriad of things
but that's
happening.
good.
Yeah.
There's somebody
Yeah.
there doing that. If you just have a look at this, you've actually got the Federation of Small Businesses website here. If you do join up, when you part of the welcome package to the FSB website, we've got a wide range of benefits that are available. Business protection, commercial advantage, telling you about the International Festival for Business 2014. A survey, actually finding out what you're on about further, and also the latest news too. As you can see, when this particular programme was recorded, we had the tube strikes taking place. There are publications that are there as well. There's a lot of really good information. Legal protection, every business needs to be doing something about that. So there's a lot of good stuff there. You'll find that at the following website. It's www.fsb.org.uk. Just go along that website. We gave them a call today, 0808 2020 888. Some very friendly and helpful people are there at the other end of the line. If you just want to talk to them and find out more about what the FSB will actually do. We're members of the FSB. What's the actual cost?
Good question.
Is that the hardest one?
There is a scale. I think the minimum is £150 a year. It's fantastic value for money. Right. But you asked me, why should you join the FSB? Because it's a lobbying body representing small businesses. I'm going to make a bold statement.
Go on then.
I'm going to make the statement that says, whilst the FSB Federation of Small Business is what we are, and we represent small businesses, and small businesses is the one-man band to 250 employees, I'm going to say, Steve, that actually we are the authentic voice of business, per se. And why do I say that? Well, because most businesses in this country, 4.8 million of them, are small businesses. And we've got our finger on the pulse. We have 200,000 members. We have 10,000, just under 10,000 members, just in the region that I chair, Surrey and West Sussex. It is
10,000?
Yeah, it's a very, very powerful...
But it's not... We've got to make it clear, though. It's not just a talking shop, is it?
No.
It is an organisation.
It's an organisation
that's actually got some muscle behind it.
It's an organisation. Well, you don't get in the door number 11 or number 10 without having some clout. You know, last year and this year, both the National Chairman, John Allen, and the National Policy Chairman, Mike Cherry, had an hour with the Chancellor on a one-on-one basis, talking through the issues that they would like to see the Chancellor announce in terms of helping small business.
And the things they were asking for was because it surveyed the members.
We survey the members regularly. We've got our finger on the pulse as to what's hurting and affecting small business. And of course, as every minister will tell you, even the opposition will tell you, they're a fan of us too, small business is the heart of the economy. It's going to pull us out of the recession into a strong economy. Therefore, quite rightly, the FSB is the exact right voice to listen to when you want to know, as a government, as an opposition party, what it is that small businesses need to help make the recovery work. And
right.
That's what we're about.
As I said, the web address on that is fsb.org.uk. There's a website. You can go there. You can find out all about them. There's a bit about us, their member benefits, and so much more. Tell you what. We're nearly there. That's nearly the hour. It's flown by. It's been absolutely fascinating talking to you today, and I've loved every minute of it. What we do, we always invite all our guests to look straight down the lens and to really, to a certain extent, to sum up some of the skills, techniques, some of the advice that you gave earlier in the programme. Maybe also to do a little bit of a sum up on the FSB as well. But if you'd like to, I'll pull my lovely laptop out of the way. And if you look straight down camera number 3, that one just over there, that's the one. Introduce who you are. Tell us what it's all about. Ladies and gentlemen, Antonio Falco.
Yes, hello, my name is Antonio Falco. I'm a sales and business consultant, and I'm also the regional chairman for Surrey and West Sussex for the FSB. We had hopefully an interesting show that you've picked up some tips and hints as to how to maybe improve your business. As it's the 33rd show, I'm going to give 3 out of 3. So let me start with these. In sales, what you need to be doing is 1, making sure you understand who you're targeting your product and service to. 2, pick the phone up. Start talking to people. And 3, at some point, you need to ask for the order. You're looking to make the transaction. Business. I believe business is about 3 things: products, people, and figures. The numbers. When it comes to product, do not compromise on what you're selling. Always deliver the very best that you can. When it comes to people And last week you heard Steve Bridger talking about communicating. The first person to communicate to is yourself. You need to tell yourself that actually what you're doing is right, you're doing it in a proper manner with integrity, and that you're looking to help people. And the third thing is numbers. You need to set yourself a target. If you don't aim for something, you won't hit anything. Targets in business is very, very important. And third, let me finish on just in general points, if I may, Steve. Business is about being persistent and consistent. There's no overnight success. This is not Britain's Got Talent. This is serious. It's about making your business work, and to do that you have to be persistent and consistent. And you have to have faith. Because if you don't believe in yourself and your business, I can assure you nobody else is going to either. Have faith in what you do, make it better as you go down the journey, but just do what you need to do.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed, and I think good advice as well there for that matter. Prem Gyani, CEO of Social Outsourcing, joins us next week. Looking forward to having Prem on the programme. Can I say there is one additional thing that you need to remember, and two additional things to remember. Additional thing number one, subscribe. Additional thing number two, did you see the power of tonight's programme? Have you gone away with some great ideas? Are you thinking to yourself, yeah, we can do this, we can build our business, we can actually get more business by picking the phone up and talking to people? And wouldn't it be great if you had a programme like this one for your business? You can. It's called our virtual newsroom. If you want to email us, you can at businessconnectionslive.com, or if you want, you can call us on 01784 256 777. There's the web address. Drop us an email and we'll give you all the details. We would love to come to see you and tell you the features so that we can then identify the benefits for your business of having a programme just like this one. From me, Steve Parlin, thank you very much indeed for watching. Antonio Falco, thank you very much for being a fantastic guest.
Thank you.
And from all the team, we'll see you next week with Prem Gyani, CEO of Social Outsourcing. Till then, bye for now. Bye-bye.